a lot of studies that show that indie authors don't make very much money, and traditional authors, surprisingly, also don't make very much money. Most authors don't sell more than 1,000 books in their entire career, but I want to prove to you today that making good money on your books isn't just luck, and we are actually going to talk to Lee Savino, who is a millionaire author and runs the Millionaire Author Mastermind, so that we can learn what it's like to be a millionaire author and how it's possible for everyone, not just a lucky few. Lee, it is so wonderful to have you here. Could you introduce yourself to everyone who might not know who you are, or people who do know but want some more info?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm Lee Savino and I write spicy romance. I'm a USA Today bestselling author and I've been indie since 2015. And I had a lot of big money goals that I was pretty public about. I founded the Facebook group Millionaire Author Mastermind to just talk about this intersection of writing books and making money. And then we met because I took your TikTok class and it was fabulous. And here I am today.
That's fantastic. Well, I will say, when I saw that you were taking my TikTok class, because I think you took it like really early on, so I saw your name pop up and I was like, that's not the same Lee Savino. It is the same one. Um, so, okay. What does it mean to you to be a millionaire author?
Yeah. So my goal was to make a lot of money and I wanted to make six figures in a year. And once I did that, I said, well, what's next? So I wanted to make seven figures in a year. So over $1 million in a year. However, you get to decide what you want millionaire to mean. You can mean a millionaire as in cash in the bank, cash in hand. You can have $1 million gross income over your lifetime, a million net. You pay $1 million in taxes. I don't care what it is. You get to decide. And the reality is, the sooner you feel like a millionaire and you're making decisions from a place of, I'm running a business and I'm building something big, the faster you'll get to either $1 million in income or $1 million in net profit, whatever you would like. I encourage people to look back over the money they've made in their lifetime, because $1 million sounds like a lot, but when you look over your working career, you might have already made $1 million, a couple million, a couple 100,000, and that seems like a big number. And then you go, well, I already did that. And it's, so it just feels a little bit more attainable. You go, well, I already did that. I just want the money to come in faster.
Yeah, I actually really recently, I was just out of curiosity, I went to check my lifetime revenue on my books, and I looked and I was like, that's $100,000 in 4 years. I had no idea until I went and checked.
Yes. See, there you go. Because so much of this is mindset. And in my group, we talk a lot about tactics. We talk a lot about, what are you doing on TikTok? What are you doing with your newsletter? Are you running ads? What are you writing? How do you write a more marketable book, a more mainstream book, a book that might have a larger audience? How do you write a better book? How do you work on your craft as an author? But again, so much of this is about mindset and believing you can do it and taking the steps towards it, which we all know, because if you're an author, you set out to do something that a lot of people say they want to do. They say, I want to be an author, or I want to write a book. And you might have done that. You might have actually written the book. And it isn't necessarily done in a day. It's something that you sit down and you work at over time. And then you have this finished product in your hand, and then you're editing it, and then you're hiring people to help you. And it's a wonderful endeavor, but it is not nothing. It's not like you went to the gym, you lifted weights once, and then you're, like, okay, I worked out, the end.
I worked out. If I don't look in the mirror and have a six pack, then I'm going to be pissed.
Right. It's the same sort of work. It's mental work, typically mental labor when you're writing. But again, I'm just saying, like, people have these goals, and if you're listening to this and you've written a book or a short story, you've already achieved a big goal that a lot of people want to achieve. And what happened was you decided to go for it and to do it, even though maybe you didn't think you could, or you didn't know if you could for sure. And you got halfway through and were like, this is a effing mess. I think a lot of authors probably have finished manuscripts on their desktop simply because you don't know like how to finish a project, or you get into a project and you're like, actually not this. Let's skip and do something else. And that's part of the learning process. So I think every author probably has a bunch of manuscripts. And then if you finished one book, yay. If you finished 10, I've added up for a presentation I did called The Path to a Million Book Sales for Inkers Con, which is coming out in a couple of months. And I realized I have 92 titles up, meaning
Holy shit, Lee.
Yeah, single titles. And they are also a lot of anthologies. So I'll put those single titles, I'll box them up 5 or 10 at a time.
So let me ask, just for clarification, especially for people who maybe have just started publishing or they're on like book 3 or something and don't realize that you can lose track like that. When you say 92 titles, do you mean like, 30 books plus translations for those? Or is that like 92 different books?
So I do have translations.
Okay.
I made a really cool spreadsheet. It was everything, all of my titles in English, including the box sets. And I have some of my individual books boxed up in different ways. So I included all those anthologies that I've made. And it came out to 92. And I'm still writing and I'm still boxing things up in creative ways. And then at the top, I put all the formats I have. So that included audio, paperback, hardback, if I have any of those, which I don't actually. It would include large print, which I don't have any of those. And it included translations. So French, Spanish, Italian, German, and all of those I have in ebook and paperback at least. And I've just started German audio. So it did not, all those titles did not include those titles in French, German, Italian. That's what I did at the top of the spreadsheet. And then I basically was like, if every book in English here made $1 in all of these categories every day, I would make almost $3,000 a day, and 3,000 times 365 days a year is over $1 million a year. So It's a good way of visualizing. You don't have to write a breakout book. You don't have to write a huge bestseller. You don't have to switch genres. You can write in a niche. And I wrote very, very, very short books. Like my spines are very thin because I'm talking like 25,000 words, maybe 50,000 words. And I wrote 92 of them.
Yeah, you know what? That's a mood, because my books, I'm like, okay, so this one might hit 40,000. I'm real lucky. I've gotten longer as I like go on, because you said none of yours are large print. I think technically all of mine are large print, just so that I could have a spine on all of my books.
Yeah. So yeah, tiny.
Yep.
And some of them are getting a little bit longer, but it's okay. It just, I thought that I would have to write something trendy. I would have to write a certain genre or subgenre. And I'm already in romance, which is a massive genre. Right. There's a lot of readers in romance. And you don't have to do that. You can do it your own way.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you don't have to have all of your books be bestsellers to make $1 million a year. It's a lot about the business, being able to sell a copy of each book.
Yeah, you can look at it that way, or you could publish one book and be 50 Shades of Grey and be massive.
Yeah, there's so many statistics out there from studies that are like, oh, authors generally don't even make $1,000 off of their books. But then I saw another study that changed, I think it was just from a poll in the 20 books to 50K Facebook group, that they added a clarification on there, because they had people say like, do you treat this like a business? Do you work on your marketing? Do you make sure your cover design is optimized? Do you put in the effort to treat this as a business versus a hobby or a passion? And the numbers went up so significantly. Would you say that becoming a millionaire author, or even just becoming an author that makes a living, is about work, or is it about luck? You know, do you have to get really lucky to make a good living at this, or can anybody do it?
I think anyone can do it, and it is about mindset. One of my favorite business people right now is an author, and his name is Pierre. And he's huge right now in the direct sales space, which I am dabbling in direct sales, having some success. It's been interesting. And he writes poetry.
Okay.
He writes poetry novels. Not only does he have, or has he had a very successful, like 7-figure business, like multiples of what I make. He also now has worked with several people in the nonfiction space and got them to massive amounts of book sales. Like his goal is, 7 figures for them also, but we're talking like 100,000 books in a month being sold. Crazy, awesome numbers. So I love watching him, and he is such a great business thinker, business mindset thinker, and he's a poet. Like, dude, go you. And now his business is setting up direct sales stores and either teaching you how to do it, doing it for you, or doing it with you, and making you a success, and he's getting a cut, which is kind of a publisher sort of deal. And I love that too. He's just so smart. And again, you meet him, and I love meeting people like this because he's just going to do it.
Yeah.
And when you look at his story, he had massive failure, massive. That led to him having to figure things out. For example, he was so excited to get into bookstores. He got 30,000 books out there in the Barnes & Noble or whatever. Well, they can return those books.
Yeah.
That's part of the pact you make with bookstores. The book model is weird, guys.
Yeah.
So Pierre thought he had made it because he was in bookstores, and then they return his books, and he goes, oh no. And he had $30,000 worth of inventory, basically. And he figured it out. He went and did a direct store and has a direct store empire. When you meet him, I'm like, this dude believes in himself and he's going for it. And I really think you can make 7 figures writing short books like I did and having them in a lot of different formats and a lot of different languages. You can make 7 figures on just audiobooks. You can make 7 figures by being traditionally published. You can make 7 figures by writing 1 book and getting a movie deal. And if you don't want to write books, you can make 7 figures doing that. Or if you're in the nonfiction space, write a book, give it away, and upsell to your course or your coaching or whatever high ticket offer you have. I think you can make 7 figures doing pretty much anything. And it's going to come down to your focus and your mindset. Are you allowing yourself to take steps towards that goal? Any goal that we think of could be as complicated as saying, I'm going to drive to the store. When you think about all the things you do to drive to the store, your heart pumping, what it takes for your body to take a single step. And then when you're in the car, you've got the brakes and the turn signals and the rear view mirror. And there's a lot of steps that we actually take. There's a lot of little things we do when we go to the store, but it's not a big deal to us.
Yeah.
But when someone says, well, I want to make all this money, there's going to be a bunch of steps that you take towards that goal. And you might stop yourself because you don't know anyone who's made money being an author, which is what I just didn't know anybody who was even an author or made a living at it. And I told myself I couldn't do it for years. And I quit really hard the year that the Kindle was invented, and everyone, it was the boom year for online publishing, and indie publishing was born. Basically, it was the wild, wild west. It was the early days. It was the gold rush. And now we're in like the golden years, and it's okay because it worked out and I can still make money now. And now I just had a meeting with a comic book producer, and we're talking about taking a romance novel, again, a very short romance novel that I love. And my fellow podcaster, Russell Nolte, we have a podcast together. He wrote the script for this comic. He loves doing comics. And now we're going to do this comic book project. And it's like, I wrote that book in 2015. I thought it up when I was in college, and now it's getting a new life. It's getting turned into this beautiful piece of art. And I don't know if I'm going to make 7 figures off of it, but I'm going to have a blast. And if it does make some money, you can bet that some of my books are going to be then also in comic book form, in graphic novel form, and in webtoon form.
Yeah.
And here we go again, like, but I'm not stopping myself. I'm not going, there's no way, I can't do it,
Yeah.
and there's not a moral dilemma either going, people think that rich people are evil, and you can be rich and evil if you want. You can also just be yourself, a more confident, better healthcare owning version of yourself.
Like dental stuff. Gotta take care of those luxury bones when you've got money. That's exciting stuff too. Wild, the things that you can do when you have money. And like you said, so many people think that, being rich is inherently evil and that rich people are inherently evil. I don't know if you've read Denise DeField Thomas's stuff. I was going to say, you probably have, but she talks about how if you're poor and you have a very strong belief system, then you can talk about it and you can build an audience. But if you're rich and you have that belief system, you can do something about it. You can put money into doing these things. Like a year ago, I wouldn't have been able to see a lost, sick animal and say, okay, yeah, I will just grab this kitten that's very injured and I'm going to immediately take it to the vet, get it all of the care it needs, find it the perfect home, do everything, take no money for the adoption fee because, I just want to do this. A year ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that, but now that I have money, I can do things like that. There's so much more you can do when you have money. And I think that a lot of what we see in media and in the news is the rich people that do suck a lot. We don't see as much of this heiress who inherited billions of dollars is like, yeah, we should tax rich people more, and here's the charity stuff that I do. That's not the stuff that makes headlines. The stuff that makes headlines is, hey, look, he shot his car into the sun.
Oh my Lord. Well, to be fair, people of all income brackets aren't getting a great shake in the news because the news wants you to keep watching the news. So it's going to double down on what makes you keep watching, and what makes you keep watching is something scary.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think that also kind of leads into, because, we talk about abundance mindset. I'm a huge believer in abundance mindset. I'm even doing my own mini abundance course because the main thing people say to me when they meet me is, oh my God, how are you so confident? That's something people say to me a lot, especially just when I'm out and about. I went to a fitness class and there was this lady who was just always down on herself and she didn't believe in herself or her ability to do anything. And she asked me, she was like, how are you so confident? And I was like, because I have to be. If I'm not, then what am I accomplishing by not being confident? Or as some people on TikTok say, by not being totally delulu. What am I going to accomplish if I'm not delusional sometimes? And so, I'm trying to help people become more confident because I think that's the biggest issue I see, especially with women in these spaces, is they're like, well, I can try it, but I'm not going to make money. Or is it even worth writing this whole book? Or I can't finish a book. And you just constantly see this. But then when you change that mindset to a more abundant mindset of, yeah, I can do this. It's like going to the store, like your analogy you were saying. It's like going to the store. It's just a few steps and then I've made $1 million. That's all it is. There's a lot of steps. But
it is a lot of steps. It is a longer journey than just driving to the store. But
yes,
to stretch this metaphor, if you have to stop for gas or whatever, you're not going to go, well, there's no point to this, and turn around and go home. You're also not going to hear people go, well, only evil people go to the store. Or, your pastor isn't going to tell you, if you go to the store, God won't love you or whatever. So there are goals that we get socialized to not pursue. And in my family, it just was, my dad was like, can you just get a business degree? I was studying creative writing because he said, you have to go to college. I was like, well, I'm in college, but I might as well do what I want. And, I pay my bills with my creative writing degree. Actually, you don't even need a creative writing degree. You can skip that. Just write.
I have a year of film school. That's what I've got. That's what I've got under my belt.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, how do I get started? How do I move forward? I have something I love to teach that's called the magic spell. And it actually is scientifically proven when you do things like keep a gratitude journal or keep a journal of your wins or things that make you feel good, you end up in this open state of mind. You're more open and you make connections with other people versus telling yourself a story that keeps you kind of closed off to the world. And actually making connections is how you really get anywhere.
It's true. It really is.
Yeah. So someone told me about your course. So then I take your course. So then I meet you and now we're collaborating and I learn stuff from your course. So I use that on TikTok. So that helps me connect, with more readers instead of talking myself out of doing TikTok, which I actually did for years. I was like, I don't know.
You know what? Same. I talked myself out of doing TikTok for years. And now people are like, "Oh yeah, Kate, the TikTok lady." And I'm like, "That's who I am now."
Yep, you are. And you could have talked yourself out of doing TikTok again and then out of doing the course. And you didn't, and you're moving forward. And who knows what iteration it'll take in 10 years, but
Right.
you're moving, you're going to the store. You're like, I want to do this, and there's no reason I shouldn't, so you're just going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, you know Becca Syme?
Yes.
I was on a retreat with some other authors. Also, I want to clarify, I was living in a shed a year ago that was like barely converted into a house but did not have running water. And a month ago, I was on a retreat in a mansion in Mexico, which is the previous video to this one. I was on a retreat in a mansion in Mexico with some other authors, and Becca Syme, author, marketing, and mindset extraordinaire, I told her my goal for June is to make $152,000, and she looked at me and was like, "Yeah, you'll do that," which is funny because Nikki Rome had been thinking, she was like, "I'm gonna agree with her when she says this, but there's no fucking way," because you know how we impose our limiting beliefs not just on ourselves but others. But then she was like, when Becca Syme said it, I was like, oh shit, she was serious. And it's just about like being like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, obviously. And I totally agree with what you said. It opens you up to a lot of things, to more opportunities.
Yeah. So again, I started talking about the magic spell. So this is
yes, sorry. Magic spell.
No, I derailed myself. So it is science-backed, but
yes, it is science-backed, but it's fun to call it the magic
spell. It's also called the magic spell, and it's very weird. Whatever, I don't care. We're having fun. So you write out 10 things you're grateful for, and then you write out 10 things that you love. And ideally, you're writing out why you're grateful for these things. And you can just sit and look around your room and go, I'm grateful for overhead lighting and rugs and fresh air from the window.
And my book hoard.
So you can just appreciate what you already have. So what happens is I get grouchy and there's almost like this little crust. I have to break through the crust to get to a better feeling place. So I use this magic spell to move myself into feeling grateful, and which really makes me feel happy.
Yes.
And I notice 12 hours later when I look back on my day, if I've done this in the morning, I am feeling good. I'm so satisfied with what I did today. And I'm seeing all these connections and I'm seeing how things could work out. And it just is, it's nice. And even if all it did was made me feel better for 10 minutes, it would be worth it. So write out what you're grateful for and why. Write out 10 things you love. So pets, people, the smell of roses, putting yourself in a good mood. And what I think this helps you do is get your brain locked on to looking at the positive, because we have a reticular activating system where our minds are filtering out trillions of data points. And if you say, I like red trucks, and you'll start to notice red trucks. Why? Because your mind starts filtering out red trucks. And I heard a story of a man who said, I want to go to Hawaii. He was a kid in Iowa, and he started noticing Hawaii. Oh, there's a poster. Oh, there's a brochure for a vacation to Hawaii, and it's like $3,000. He's like, well, probably not that. He remained open, and then he was riding a bus and he looked over and it said, do you want to work in Hawaii? And it was a job offer for a cruise ship. And he ended up working on a cruise ship, becoming the cruise entertainment manager, and meeting his wife. So all that to say, he was open to Hawaii and he never shut it down. And there were things that were coming to him that weren't going to get him to Hawaii, but he didn't shut it down. He kept noticing. And what happened when I shut down my dream of being a writer and an author is I said, it's not possible. And so my brain said, oh, it's not possible. Okay, well, stop finding you avenues that you could be an author and you could make a living at it. And I could have said, maybe it's possible. I wonder if anyone else is doing it. I wouldn't even have to believe it for myself, but I could have believed it for someone else. And my brain would have been like, well, there's this new thing called indie publishing, and maybe you just go on Smashwords and da, 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 da. Instead, I didn't do that for years, and then figured out maybe I could do this in 2015. And that's when I did do it. And it all turned out okay. But if you're listening to this, I don't want you to have to go through that. So sit down, do this magic spell, and then write out what you want. So you might want $1 million. You might want to be an author. You might want both of those things at the same time. You might want a new couch. You might want a new car, or you might just want to get through the day. Put it all on the list, or one thing, I don't care. And then I take that piece of paper and I put it in a box. And once it's in the box, it's like I try to get in the feeling of it's done. It's off my to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go about my day. And what's cool about writing it down and putting it in the box or putting it in a journal and like, having it saved somewhere is that 3 years from now, you'll open that box and you'll notice that certain things have come true.
Yes.
And then it's almost like you've built evidence. Well, what happened? Your brain, possibly, the whole magic spell is designed to get you in a really good state, really happy feelings, a feeling of possibility, and then add to that what you want. So hopefully your subconscious mind takes in, I want $1 million and it's possible to do $1 million. And it just stores that down there. And then the reticular activating system starts going, okay, let's start noticing millionaire authors. Let's start noticing book contests. Let's start noticing ways to market. And you might go, no, not that. No, not that. No, not that. Oh, wait, let me watch his stuff. I really like his books. And oh, he's talking about how he made 6 figures. Well, maybe I could do that first, And again, your subconscious mind will filter all the data out to get you on a path. And if you start taking steps down that path, you will get results. And you will have to make course corrections. You're going to do stuff that doesn't work because I have 92 titles and not all make $1 a day. Some of them make $0 a day, but some of them make like $52 a day.
Right. It balances out.
Yeah. So that's the magic spell. I really like it. And I'm actually doing this. It's from my book, Adventures with the Universe, which is up on Amazon, but it's also free in my Money Magic course. So I was like, hey guys, this book is free. Let's go through it again because I want to do it again. So
yes,
I'm on adventure 3 of 13 adventures, and the magic spell is adventure 1. So if you didn't follow along with what I just said, you can read it in this book.
Yes.
And it's all about mindset and the stuff I do to stay positive and to keep moving forward. Because now I'm like, well, what are my goals now? I want to write better books. I want to write more books. I want to write these sorts of books. I want better packaging. I want to do this comic with this publisher, and I want to make $1 million a month. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do the magic spell. I'm going to do the things that I did to get where I am. And a lot of it is mindset.
Yes. 100%. There's so much about mindset that will change your life. And I feel like a lot of people get turned off of the spiritual and, as we say, woo-woo aspects of it, which I'm 100% in on those. I'm like, the universe loves me, etc. But I feel like people are so quick to discount that aspect of it that they don't look at the actual psychological effects and aspects of just turning your brain from, I want this, but it's not possible. Oh, sure, I would love to be a millionaire, but how many people are actually going out to do it? It's the way that you shift your brain into, this isn't a real thing people can do. This is a very lucky thing. Just dismissing it out the gate to, oh, it's a process. And it's not the easiest process in the world, but it's a process just like everything else. I really love that TikTok sound that somebody posted that was like, sometimes when I wonder if I can do something, I just think, well, boys do it.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily that specifically, but if you just think, well, this jackass idiot that I just saw on the news did it. Why can he do it, but I can't? I'm smarter than him.
Yep. And he maybe believes he can, or maybe he was socialized all his life to be told that he was, God's gift to the earth.
Chances are it was that one.
Yeah. So why not give yourself the same confidence, why not give yourself the same chance as
yes, exactly.
As that guy, which you can't, because, society might actually be against you. And then I'm reminded of Pierre's story, he had a lot against him and he figured it out and is incredibly successful as a businessman and an author. So
it can be so disheartening when it feels like the universe is against you or when systemic things are against you. But if these other things are against you, then you've got to be all in on you.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I tell people. I'm like, yes, the system is unfair. The system is biased against a lot of groups of people. But chances are that's not going to change very much in the next 5 to 10 years. And there are millions of people fighting for change. But what's going to fix your life right now? And even just that one step of starting to believe in yourself. And like you said, using the magic spell and looking into, here are things I'm grateful grateful for. Here are things I love, and here are the things I want. And just starting to open yourself to be like, this is what I want. And then moving towards, this is what I want, and I'm gonna fucking get it.
Yeah, and the gratitude is so powerful because we are richer than the pharaohs and all the richest kings combined. I mean, just by virtue of the fact that you can watch this on your phone or your computer. Like,
Yeah.
we have incredible avenues of connection and avenues towards knowledge. Your and my career as indie authors did not exist and has not existed for 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
it's brand new.
It's a very new thing. I mean, well, in the past, the only type of being an indie author was you have to find a publisher and print copies of your book and then find places to sell them. And just there's so many opportunities. And like you said, like literacy makes us richer.
Yes.
And, you know, when it comes to like courses and stuff, because I absolutely love your course, I need to take more of it and finish taking it, but I am in yours as well. One of my favorite things that I always hear people say and that I love to repeat is knowledge is the one thing nobody can take from you. If you screw something up and you lose your business, if you forget to file your taxes 3 years in a row and the IRS comes after you and you have to file for bankruptcy or something, I don't know how that works. But you know, if all of this horrible stuff happens, you still have the knowledge. The knowledge is still there. And that's something that I think a lot of people discount. They're like, well, if you didn't have XYZ, you wouldn't be able to do this. And it's like, maybe, but I would still know how. If everything went away tomorrow, I would still have ingenuity. I would still know how to tell myself to look for the opportunities.
Yes. Absolutely.
And even just being able to train your brain to be ready for opportunities, it's mind-blowing how much changes.
Yeah, look at your story.
Yeah. I mean, and my first series went well, and I thought I was doing amazing and was going to be forever successful. And then I girl bossed too close to the sun. Everything fell apart. But within 2 years of all of that failure, I now drive a Mercedes and own a designer bag. So, you know, there are different flows in it, but once you kind of really deeply understand it, and once you start seeing the opportunities, the lows get a lot easier and a lot less horrible than the previous.
I do think when you're in the high, save your money, be conservative, and whether you're in the high or a low, do that magic spell to lift your mood and observe. And then in our money magic course, we go deeper into removing beliefs and blocks that would stop you, because part of earning money, the second part is having money, and having money means not necessarily spending all your money, and it means investing and saving and living beneath your means. And that is abundance. You can be broke and feel abundant in a park. Ideally, though, when you bring in some money, you're able to keep it. And if you're not able to, I encourage you to check out the Money Magic membership. We have a code, you get a free month, and then it's a monthly membership from then on. So you can check it out. It is a lot of woo-woo stuff, but we talk about...
It's fantastic, though. I'm in that as well.
Yeah, we actually have the call on Friday today. So
you've got a lot going on today.
Yeah, that's after this. But if you're listening to this and you need a boost, and you want to go deeper than just the magic spell I outlined, go ahead and check out this free month. And then it can help because, you know, ideally you can make the money, make all the money you want, and then also have the money, keep the money, you know, have your bills be a tiny portion of what you actually bring in, which is the most abundant thing for me. And sometimes that means making sure my bills are really low. And sometimes that means making sure my income is really high. Or if there is a dip, you know, my bills are low, that it's still like,
right,
I'm good. So I did want to mention that because there are ups and downs in business, and the downs are fine as long as you're not in a panic spiral. And
absolutely.
So,
I think that panic and desperation spiral is the worst possible part of downs.
Yeah. So if you can remove that desperation and that panic.
Yes,
then you're
absolutely. And having something you can do where, like, if it is low and you're like, it's low and my savings are dwindling, just having something extra you can do. Because I discovered this year, I was like, oh, as it turns out, it's very hard for me to not make money if I need it now, which is such a wild place in life for me to be from someone who grew up fairly poor. Like, it's so weird to go from that place in life as a kid and then being, you know, older and realizing, one, my parents had very very bad ideas about money, and they had very lack mindset. They had very strong lack mindset, which my mother very much still does. But then going and being like, oh, if I'm like, I could use some extra cash before the end of the month, then I have this like one thing that's in very high demand. And because I've built up this audience and reputation, like I can just be like, hey guys, I'm offering the thing. And then I've got like a flood of inboxes.
Awesome. Yeah. So then you can bet on yourself and have that confidence even in the down. But but fixing again, because if you're fixated, and I know we have to wrap up, but if you're fixated on I never have money, then your brain's like, oh, okay. And it starts to work to prove that true.
Yep. And if you have money, then you start spending it immediately. And it's not even necessarily just well, I need to spend it because there's these things that need fixed. Because I thought it was that. I thought it was, oh, well, now that I have money, I'm spending it because our car really needs fixed. We really need new phones. We really need a better house because our one is terrible, or we're living in a van or whatever. Both of these have applied to me. And then I started to realize later on, I was like, oh no, this is like my brain starts to panic when I'm stable.
And it gives me bad spending habits, and just like working through that.
I do have one last question before we wrap up.
What is the absolute first step that you would suggest people take if they want to
make money as an author, whether they've written a book or not? What's the first step you recommend people take to become as you say, millionaire author?
I would do that magic spell and get yourself in the headspace, and then write that goal down and put it in a box. And then I still come across the little scraps of paper I wrote. Apparently they didn't all end up in the box. They're just in my house and my random desk corners. And I pull them out and I'm going, oh my golly. And I'm screenshotting them and putting them in my talks now to go, this is where I started. Another thing you can do is take books that weren't written by you, and then wrap the spine and put your pen name on the spine. So when you look, you see there are books with your name on it, your pen name on it. And I did that too before I had written any or finished any books. And it helped normalize that I would one day have books on the shelf. And now I do. So those are very mindset and woo-woo based, but I would do those things because it's foundational. And do it. You don't have to tell everyone about it. You don't have to come on a podcast and say that you did it. You just do it. It works.
You don't have to do an interview on YouTube and tell people that you did it.
Yeah, keep it a secret.
Or, do come on a YouTube channel and tell people you did it. Up to you if you want to.
Come on the YouTube channel after you've done it and be like, oh, I took this advice, and if it helped, then you can tell everyone.
I took this advice and now I'm a millionaire. So, All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Lee. Will you let everyone know where they can find you, connect with you?
Yeah. Find me in the Millionaire Author Mastermind. And when you go to join that group, you have to answer questions. Otherwise, I won't let you in. But please answer the questions. And it says, check out my author advice newsletter, and you could subscribe there for free advice.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. I am genuinely a member of all of this stuff. Honestly, like being in this group helped me get where I'm at today. And it's so amazing how being in this group of people in this millionaire author mindset and abundance mindset group, it's just amazing how much things change and how rapidly when you start to connect with people who are on that same path and on that same wavelength as you.
Thank you for talking with me today.